All right, thank you very much. What I'm going to show you is an updated presentation that was made almost 15 years ago by some members of the Florida Department of Transportation, showing how they responded to the impacts of a hurricane on a local highway. So originally the presenters were Josh Bone, Michael Shepard, and Steve Iwinski, and we want to thank them again and acknowledge their contributions. We're talking about the impacts in Florida to an area we call the Panhandle, kind of the central curve part of Florida, and specifically we're looking at the impacts to a 14-mile stretch of coastal two-lane highway that was the main transportation corridor between communities in that area. In 2005, Hurricane Dennis impacted that area as a strong Category 3 storm. Winds were gusting over 120 miles per hour, greater than 7 inches of rainfall in less than 24 hours, storm surge of 7 feet or more. Again, this is the track going on up through the southeast. Again, if you understand hurricanes, the strong side of the hurricane is the northeast part, the kind of top right part, and so the track takes it slightly to the left of our impact area, but the storm surge and the impacts were dead on in this area. These are just, again, showing you the storm surge area that we're talking about and the rainfall amounts. Of course, there was severe structural damage to the coastal communities, as is always with nature tropical storms. These are just some of the pictures showing damage to dwellings, boats, recreational areas, et cetera, things that you usually see in the news reports, not uncommon. There was also significant impact to the transportation corridor through that area, Highway 98. The storm surge came up and pretty much took out everything on the Gulf Coast side. Sometimes it took out one lane, sometimes it took out multiple lanes. It was due to the impacts of both the storm surge and the wave, which heights were greater than 12 feet at times, undermining the sediment and road base and causing collapse, and also the retreating water as it came back after the storm surge, pulling everything back out from under it. Toppling utility lines, pretty much making parts or all of the road impassable. So quickly, there was an effort to see if they could make a temporary repair to restore transportation, both from a public safety and for community needs. A contract was let out for just under $11 million. The goal was to reconstruct and get the area open in a very quick time, less than 14 days. Emergency repairs had to be done, and the contract was let, and very quickly the contractor went in, started clearing debris, bringing in fill, trying to get everything back on track, moving along at a very rapid pace. Laying down asphalt. Again, this was temporary repairs designed to last about a year or two, not building back to the spec, because that was to come later. So moving at a very rapid pace. They got everything going along there quickly, and by the end of that 2-week period, they had completed the emergency repairs. Travel lanes were back open. Traffic was restored. It was considered a successful emergency repair fix. However, within a week after that repair, they started noticing rill and gully erosion occurring on the oceanside slopes, just due to the regular rainfall events going on in the summer. They attempted to make some repairs on that by bringing in some fill and some other material, but it kept getting progressively worse. New sod was having the material pulled out from under it, couldn't get roots established in a very quick time, and the entire waterside slope was in danger of failing, which would again take out our emergency repair again. In some areas, some of the outfall structures were also impacted. Again, they brought in some fill to attempt to repair it, but it was just being washed back out repeatedly. So they had to have a second kind of an emergency repair, mostly just on the slope side, to try to stabilize that. This was to quickly establish and protect the slope shoulders. We wanted a low maintenance solution. They wanted a vegetation, a type of turf grass that was more appropriate for the salty areas. Originally they put down a bahia. They were looking at something that was better than that. Only looking for short-term 1 to 2 year solution. And again, it would allow for accommodation of the future final solution, so they didn't have to dig everything up to go back and fix the road permanently. It had to be as cost-effective as they could under an accelerated budget schedule. So the initial design consideration was curb and gutter. That was out. That's too expensive. That's more of a permanent fix, and it was cost prohibitive. They were looking at using rolled erosion control products to protect the slope, erosion control blankets combined with seed or sod. They were temporary, they were degradable, they would work, they would help hold in moisture, which is part of the difficulties of trying to establish vegetation in sandy soils. They would like to see if they could work in a few polymers. The polymers could help vegetation establishment if they can get that worked into the budget. And at that time, it looked like it was pretty cost effective. They further evaluated the proposals. They looked at turf reinforcement mats, which are considerably more durable, but are usually designed for high channel flows, and as such, they are non-degradable and fairly expensive, coming in at $12 to $15 per square yard. That kicked them out as a solution because it was cost prohibitive. Finally, they started looking at different types of materials that could be put down. They were looking at protecting the slopes. They looked at the different soils. They looked at trying to select a better turf grass vegetation. Other challenges, the alternative solutions allowed them to engage with a polymer vendor to see if he had any insight to assist with this. So after looking and reviewing all that, it appeared they were going to do a technique called soft armoring. Soft armoring is similar to using rolled erosion control blankets, except that it uses natural fiber jute or burlap rolled out, and it becomes an articulating, self-healing type of soft solution that can provide protection. It's cost effective, meets the design objectives. The key components of this are establishing and putting down a layer of organic compost to encourage the vegetation they're putting down to send roots in deep to help hold and protect the slope. In Florida, we put down a lot of sod. The sod is grown in a muck layer. When they cut it, it has a 1 or 2 inch layer on it. But when that's depleted within about a year or two, if the soil underneath it, like sand, doesn't have anything to encourage growth, the vegetation will starve and struggle to survive. The compost here will help encourage deep root growth on that. They also were going to use rolls of jute, which is one of the least expensive materials you can get for protection, and they wanted to mix in some of the polymer. It's a material called polyacrylamide. It's also known as PAM. It's been used for decades by the Department of Ag to stop soil erosion. It's used on construction sites, etc. It can work very well in conjunction with the jute material. The vegetation they selected was Bermuda sod. Bermuda sod is very salt tolerant and works very well. In Florida, you can get it fairly well. Usually it comes rolled, and they can roll it out fairly quickly. So one of the reasons that the original repair failed was due to poor soil structure. Soil structure is the ability of all of the different size of granular material, from small to medium to large, to be held together by organic materials, vegetation roots, organisms that live in the soil. They all work together, and they kind of make an organic cementitious connection. This allows movement of air and water through the soil and allows it all to stay in place so that we don't have a lot of erosion. This occurs over time. Whenever we do construction, we break this up because there's no vegetation. We're breaking everything up. And so for a while, our soil is very fragile. Top is a picture of what's bad soil structure. Everything's mashed together. You can't see a lot of opportunity for water or air to move through. Bottom is a better one. Again, that's just a picture. Here's actually a photomicrograph. On the left is poor soil structure. This is both sandy soils, and on the right is a more open soil structure after it's been treated with the polymer. The polymer helps hold and temporarily provide good soil structure. This is a demonstration by people from the Natural Resource Conservation Service. These are 2 glass cylinders and 2 dirt clods of the same soil type. The one on the left is poor soil structure. It's just the soil that has been dug and compacted like we would do on construction. The one on the right, when they put it in there, is natural soil with the original soil structure intact. So they're just going to lightly place it in these tubes of water. It's just going to contact water. Watch what happens.
2, 3. Okay, what do you see immediately happening? What's going on here?
Falling apart.
It's falling apart. There's nothing to hold those soil particles together. It's simply collapsing. Within seconds, it's collapsing. Now, if there were rainfall on here and the soil structure fell apart like that, what do you think would happen to the soil surface? It would seal off. It doesn't have anything to hold the soil structure together, and it's simply going to fall apart, sealing the soil over and causing the water to run off instead of infiltrate down.
Now, kind of in a reference, the original reason that the soil failed is the sod failed to send roots down into the sand, which would have helped establish soil structure. When that failure happened and we applied rain from the thunderstorms for the area, we got a separation underneath the sod, and as a result, we started getting a failure of the surface structure as well. The University of Central Florida stormwater section in Orlando, Florida has the largest rainfall simulator in the world right now, and they do a lot of testing for DOT. This is soils representing a typical highway development in Florida. On the left is soil treated with a polymer in the jute. On the right is just a compacted soil representing a slope, and they're exposing it to an 8-inch rain event. Notice the tubs, the white tubs at the bottom are collecting the runoff. You'll see on the left the water is shedding off quite clear as the polymer is providing temporary soil structure to hold the matrix in place, and the right is just decomposing like we would expect, shedding a lot of water and material off of it. The soft armor treatment on the left has been tested up to 24-inch rain events in 24 hours and survived through that. You would obviously want to continue and finish that, but it can survive these events if you can get the material down. The Department of Ag has also found that using the polymers encourages root growth quite a bit, and that, again, that goes hand in hand with adding and trying to get our vegetation established. So all the factors were in place here when they put this material down to try to be more successful than the original just kind of grade and throw down some sod on it. So what they did in the second attempt was they created a layer of organic compost, then the jute plus the polymer, then the more appropriate Bermuda sod on top to encourage the roots to seek into the organic compost and tie into the jute, providing you a flexible, articulating protection from that raindrop surge. And so we have allowed for drainage and hopefully much less runoff. So again, Pam just encourages that type of growth. I don't need to read all that, but it helps to build soil structure, which is important. So the original repair on the repair consisted of removing the existing turf, regrading, putting down compost in about 2-inch lifts, putting down the jute, and putting in the polyacrylamide at approximately 25 pounds per acre of application. So again, here they are putting out, it's almost the same equipment as if they're getting ready to put down asphalt. They've already graded, now they're putting down the compost, spreading it out, getting it a little bit more spread out here. Now they're rolling out jute, 14 miles of jute. That's a lot of jute. All spread out there. And now they're applying the granular PAM with fertilizer spreaders at 25 pounds per acre. Usually when you're stabilizing a slope, the polymer is put out anywhere between 10 and 50 pounds. 50 pounds is only put out on steep, sandy soil. Sand is very difficult to stabilize because of its circular nature and structure. It tends to roll when you get it at more than about a 3-to-1 slope. So this helps hold that in place. So they put that out, and then they applied the Bermuda sod, and there's the final repair. Now, the cost for the second repair was about $740,000 plus. The cost of the polymer was not too much, $15,000 for 14 miles. That's not too bad. 8 months later, Still pretty much looks the same. This is even with vehicles driving off the road, driving across it. Okay? And all the rain events going through there. Mostly Florida's rainy season typically is from May through about the end of August, September, when we start getting out of that. And then we get our tropical storms, and then we go into a dry season, and then we come back. But again, the sod survived. It started to do pretty well. The jute held up quite well. There's some vehicles pulled off the road every now and then. All up and down. After a year, no significant erosion was noticed through any of the routine inspections. Within a year, it was hit by a Category 1 storm. Survived that without any impacts of consequence to it. The way the polymer works for protecting soil with the jute is that it creates these small little clumps of sticky sediment called agglomerations. The agglomerations then will look for some place to attach to, which is what the jute provides. Any type of a natural fiber, coconut, jute, burlap, which is usually fairly inexpensive in landscape applications, works really well for this. So as the agglomeration is dislodged by water flow, it moves an inch and grabs a hold of the next piece of jute and so on. So in a way, up to a point, it is self-healing. And that's another good feature of this. Even after vehicle traffic starts to erode a piece of it, you can see right in there, that's just the exposed jute, it's still holding up. Still holding up. It's not intended as a permanent replacement, just as John McCulloch spoke in the original. We're trying to, as rapidly as we can, get a vegetation established. So this provides you temporary soil structure holding, and encouragement with the compost allows the vegetation to get going in there and get established. It's the combination of those two that make this successful. I have not been out to this site since then. This was way back. It's been hit by numerous Category 2, 3, 4, and 5 hurricanes since then. We just seem to be getting battered by them now. But it did provide a very good temporary repair. So kind of in summary, roadways are difficult to stabilize in sandy soils. Soil structure, which is important, is temporarily held with the polymer. The vegetative root structure is enhanced if you provided an organic source, the compost. The PAM helps as well in that case. It's very cost effective. This was in an emergency repair. If you were to plan this into part of a design, it would be even more cost effective because you wouldn't be under the gun for an emergency repair, and you could probably negotiate some of the different costs on that. And soft armor BMPs should be considered as part of an emergency BMP in considerations because they're immediate, they require very little equipment to put out, and they have been proven in actual case study tests. And again, the original presenters for the DOT and Steve Iwinski from Applied Polymers are to be acknowledged for this. I simply added some updated information and tried to show more about the importance of soil structure and why things work like they work, instead of just saying, oh, put vegetation on it and everything's nice and happy. It's like, well, this is how it actually works if you understand this. Again, some more DOT support, and that's it. So.